Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between the mighty Viking warriors of Norsca, led by myself, up against Tom Harvey and his Bretonnian lords. It's going to be a good fun game, honestly, all round. It's a particularly bad matchup for Norsca, in my opinion. Enemy cavalry can really bring the pain, but we're going to be bringing an old-school Falcon build in hopes to try to even the playing field. For our forces, we do have basic marauders in the front line, but they can also be assisted by some marauder berserkers. These guys will really be able to get into that back line because they can chew through peasants like no tomorrow. They were designed, bred, born for such purposes. And yeah, overall, not the widest formation, but not too shabby either. And to deal with that enemy skirmish cavalry, or not skirmish cavalry, sorry, heavy cavalry, which are Bretonnian, are far more likely to bring than the skirmish variety, we have triple Fimir warriors with great weapons, including the Miststalkers. Now, I'm really excited to see how Fimir warriors with great weapons fare here, because great weapons at the moment do so much damage to cavalry. So if we catch them on the charge, I'm hoping we do some good work. And of course, we do armor sundering across the board. Luckily, the Miststalkers are, of course, invisible as well, as their name would suggest, shrouded in mist. I always wonder what the opponent thinks when they see a big old misty blob walking towards them. You'd probably expect there was something in there, but I guess it is a little bit harder to shoot them. Leading the battle lines is me, Wulfric the Wanderer, looking like an absolute boss on his mammoth. Unfortunately, he just sits there like this for the whole battle, as the mammoth does all the work. So let's give him a little scratch on the neck there. It's kind of a shame he's in chains and stuff. We do have a Shaman Sorcerer of Death, kind of a Spirit Leech and a Scroll of Shielding, as well as tuners of basic Marauder Horsemen, and that's going to be it for our build, a real rush. I'm going to come up to you and punch you in the face style approach. For my opponent, up in the skies, he does have Pegasus Knights, including, I believe, one is Royal Pegasus Knights. Now, I think Pegasus Knights, as a rule of thumb, aren't that good. I honestly think Pegasus Knights are a pretty bad unit. I'm not even so sure why. They just never seem to get that much damage value. They're anti-large, so it's going to be interesting to see how they perform up against the Fimir as well as the Mammoth with effective cycle charge. And I think you really have to cycle these bad boys over and over again to try to get their value back. They're going to be supported up in the air by King Leon Kerr, which is going to be good fun. He's coming in here with the Sword of Corone, and that's about it, I think. Of course, he does have his regeneration and all that good stuff. With a load of filthy, unwashed peasant mobs in the front line, backed up by the slightly less filthy men-at-arms, though still filthy themselves. And with a nice little ranged corps in the back here, we have triple peasant archers, one of which has pox arrows to have fire on either flank, and a couple of spearmen-at-arms who are turning their back to me. They don't think the Norscans are worth their time. They're going to be here solely to protect these fire arrows. We do have some Grail Guardians, and you don't get to see terribly often here, right in the back burners, alongside a Damsel of Heavens with Curse of Midnight Wind, as well as a Damsel of Life with Regrowth and Earthblood, so going for the old double caster tactic. I think that's it for the cavalry of my opponent. We do also have some sneaky doggos. Norscan Warhounds hiding here in the trees, howling and scratching themselves, waiting for the battle to get underway. We're going to be trying to save them till the mid-game, where we can hopefully distract my opponent in the front line, and then hop on top of his back troops. We're coming in with an Overcast Spirit Leech. Overcast and Spirit Leech does not do more damage, but it does indeed increase the range. Unfortunately, we do miscast, and look at the damage our Shaman Sorcerer takes from that miscast. Huge damage. Loses about a third of his health, which is pretty insane, but we are going to be doing some pretty good work onto the Pegasus Knights. They have dropped a model as well, and it's kind of like not enough damage that you want to waste magic healing them, but at the same time, if you don't do it now, eventually they will get Spirit Leech to doom. We are starting to advance now. We're the horsemen driving our way towards the enemy battle line, leading the way for the berserkers and marauders, and we should certainly be able to chew through this ground force really quickly. It's just that the Pegasus Knights might be able to pick us apart, which could be a little bit scary, and that's when our Fimir warriors come into play. They're really going to be a counter-charging tool here today. We have two on the right-hand side, as I was looking to do a bit of a flank overload, and one of them is invisible, so my opponent won't necessarily know that, and there's one on the left. Horsemen are going to be driving up here, pulling up upon King Leon Kerr, and just launching just javelin after javelin at him. Javelins aren't the best at taking down air forces, but they'll still get the job done and kind of poke down the enemy. We have a little bit of a stalemate here, but as the fire arrows do start to unleash, I'm going to be pushing forward and starting to get real aggressive, because I'm a little scared of the bowline in the back. Luckily, we have Wulfric's boat, which can be used to take down such tools. Horsemen are continuing to pepper the king at the moment, but he's really not taking much damage, and of course will regenerate up. And our berserkers are taking a bit of a pounding on the approach. Good target priority by my opponent, but in comes the boat trying to catch two units of peasants here, and we do manage to catch one fully. The other one, unfortunately, only just gets skimmed, but it looks like this unit is going to break, which will buy us some respite. Berserkers, on the other hand, no respite for you. They get charged in the face by the Grail Guardians, who will be carving them up rather nicely after they get shot to pieces as well. So these Berserkers not going to be thanking me at all for my play of them so far, but the Miststalkers are nearby, looking to get in there and support, and Wolf of the Wanderer going to start driving into the enemy. We're playing a little defensive here with my Familiar Warriors because the King was flying over our Sorcerer looking for that snipe potential, so we're keeping a little bit of a bodyguard situation. Now that the Pegasus Knights have landed, we're going to Spirit Leech them and countercharge them here with the Warriors with great weapons, and we're going to be able to drive them away from the battle line quite quickly. But they did a really nice hit and run there onto the Marauders. Good micro by my opponent, and likewise the Warhounds did sneak into the back line, but a countercharge from the Guardians is going to shut them down. So not looking so good so far, but one thing you can always do with Norsca is snipe out the enemy lords with Wulfric. We've popped 100 champions on King Leon Loncur, and health is just dripping off him. Blood is seeping out of many wounds, and Wulfric does manage to drive him away, at least for now. And those Berserkers, though they took an absolute slaughtering early on, they've got 2 units, okay. The unit which didn't take a slaughtering is rather happy right now. They're getting buffed up by their rage mechanic, and are slowly working their way into the archer line. Spinner Arms struggling to hold back these crazy lunatics, and they certainly won't hold back Wulfric, who's just going to ramrod into the back line and immediately start to rout those guys. Peasant Bowman with Fire is doing a really good job on my Horseman here. A bit of a slip up from me. I was trying to micro their more aggressive units, so the Horsemen unfortunately are getting a really well counter shot at the moment. Wulfric's an absolute raid boss in the middle here though, just destroying Pegasus Knights. We've countercharged with Familiar Warriors as well. My opponent's going to be bringing down King Leon Loncur to try and stop this. We have popped Fight or Die though, so our melee attack is through the roof right now, and you can see Pegasus Knights, there's carcasses of those horses dotted all around the battlefield right now as more Familiar Warriors start to pour in. Curse of Midnight Wind has gone down, looking to support in the main fight, and these Miststalkers need to be a bit careful. There is a lot of troops over here trying to dish out the pain to them, and some healing coming in. But the King, even with Earthblood, is taking an absolute pounding right now. The Mammoth rears up on its hind legs and slams back down. Sword of Torgold is currently popped, which isn't actually the... I shouldn't have taken the item. It's not actually particularly great on Wulfric when he's on his Mammoth. That's a tale for another time. Sword of Crone is going to come in. Marauders are really struggling here as well, which you might expect. And the Miststalkers seem to be going down. But luckily for us, we're managing to catch a lot of this Pegasus Knights when they do land. You see 1 or 2 of them do get stuck on the ground, and they have simply no way of escaping here. You see this riderless Pegasus is going to be fleeing for its life. A big problem for me here is these Spinner Arms coming in. They're going to be very good up against my Familiar Warriors and Wulfric when saturated in. And Familiar Warriors, much like Crookscores, Trolls, and other such units, work best when supported by Chaff. So we have moved our Mauler Berserkers, all 29 of them, to intercept and try and deal with these Spearmen. Horsemen are now come back to the fray after initially routing here. My opponent still has these Peasant Bowmen online, but luckily he's forgotten about a few units. And this is something I always tell people every, I don't know, 45 seconds to a kind of minute and a half, anywhere in that range. Just take a very quick little snap look up at your mini-map and see if you've got units waiting in the wings, because I spotted these Marauders, and they're now going to be able to run over here and shut down these Peasant Bowmen, which is really lovely for me. We do get another Spirit Leech on the Grail Guardians, though a regrowth is going to be buffing them up, and I think that was a misclick for me, because these guys come in with 20%... Oh, that's physical resistance. Okay, they don't have the magic resistance. For some reason I thought they did. I was actually, I think, trying to finish off some of the Pegasus Knights instead. But still, damage is damage, and the Familiar Warriors are doing a beautiful job right here. Look at them, so fearsome, ugly, and destructive. They're going to be able to bring down Grail Guardians quite nicely, who are more anti-infantry than anti-large. I've had enough of this healing, so I'm going to be popping 100 champions down on the Damsel of Life, and she's really a damsel in distress right now. Wulfric just swinging those mighty tusks around on his beast, and the damsel is trying to trot her way out of there. Balance power is going quite heavily in our favour. Spirit Leech is finishing off Pegasus Knights, and there's only 1 model left there, so they're going to be getting finished off 100%. And all the Pegasus Knights are looking rather beat up and beleaguered at the moment. The King is going to decide, alright, Wulfric's over here, he's away, he's being distracted by the damsel's beauty. We're going to land on the far side and try to break these Marauders, force them off, and then cycle charge the Familiar to death. And one unit has been tear out here, which is a bit problematic for us, but Wolf of the Wanderer is still at basically full health, and that is a scary proposition. 6.5 minutes into a game, and Wulfric almost unscathed. Yeah, it's not looking too good for the force of Bretonnia just about now. We have some Warhounds who have returned. Horsemen were doing a little bit of kite and skirmish, finishing off units, and now we're going to bring in the Horsemen back to try to finish off the King for good. Sword of Crone once again goes down. The King's going to be coming in to attempt to burst down the mighty Wulfric, but Wulfric just terror outs with a vicious roar of his mammoth. Tear outs everything, leaving the King alone, and yeah, he's got a Spirit Leech on him. He's got javelins coming into his flank, and Wulfric is walking up to say his goodbyes. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. A Pyrrhic victory indeed. We did lose a bucket ton of troops, but a lot of our key units were still active in the late game in the form of those Vermeer Warriors and Wulfric the Wanderer. Well played to Tom as well. I think he put on a good display with his Bretonnian forces. Again, my only criticism would be, like, every now and again, just take a little look around. I do this, every player does it. I've seen the best players in the game do this. It happens to everyone, but just every now and again, a little whip around the mini-map, or just a look around the map, just see if you've got any units coming back, because those units could have saved the Peasant Bowmans, which my Marauders managed to shut down. And if you did that, maybe the fight on top would have finished off the Vermeer, and all of a sudden the king has a better time trying to duel Wulfric one-on-one instead of the situation he found himself in. But still a very good game. It was a close one, and I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll get to the damage value and damage dealt and kills of all the units in just a second, and I've just spotted Wulfric's out of the corner of my eye there. That is some very impressive stuff by the Ragnar Lothbrok of the Warhammer universe. But if you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe as well for more glorious Total War Warhammer content, and leave a comment down below. What did you think of the battle? What was your favourite moments? Scream a blood-curdling cry for Norsca if you're happy they won, or do some sad peasant noises if you're sad Bretonnia lost. The link's down below as well in the description, as always, to my Patreon where you can support me and the channel. Links to my Discord as well, where you can submit replays, get involved in tournaments I host, and chill out with a bubbling community of Total War Warhammer lunatics and ducks alike. And there's also a Games Planet account down below where you can get the new DLC, Total War Warhammer free pre-orders, any Warhammer game, in fact pretty much any game on Steam, and a discounted price. So anyway, on to the glorious stuff. Damage dealt, damage value. How did we perform? What worked, what didn't work? Well, for us in particular, Wulfric the Wanderer. Pretty much full health and still got 3,656 damage value, 15k, nearly 16k damage dealt, and 129 kills. Imagine if the game went on longer and Wulfric could use up all of his HP. He could have been well up into the 7,000 damage value by the end of that. Shaman Sorcerer of Death did a good job, 1,398 damage value, recovering from that early long miscast to still whittle down some of the more elite targets. Marauders across the board, not getting the best damage value. Berserkers was a mixed bag. One unit really failing, the other one 1,091 damage value, but they did their job. They swarmed the enemy, cleared out the chaff, and once you're rid of the chaff and the peasants, knights are easy to deal with. It's when your opponent has that kind of anvil of peasants for the hammer of the cavalry to hit against is when you've got problems. The horsemen weren't particularly well used by me in this battle, but despite that still managed to get 592 and 505 damage value, which isn't terrible at the end of the day, and the Norsca Warhounds were just a nuisance in the back line for my opponent. Vermeer Warriors really did help me out quite considerably, particularly these two basic ones. 1,578 damage value and 2,068. They're so good at countering enemy cavalry, and I had a whale of a time hunting down those Pegasus Knights. Miststalkers kind of got mixed up with the wrong crowd, unfortunately. Only 591 for them. As for Tom's forces and the Bretonnians, King Leon Lerner, only 475, which is really not paying for himself, unfortunately. Couldn't get on the best engagements because every time he landed, Wulfric was there, popping 100 champions and neutering his effectiveness. As for the double caster, not crazy damage value across the board, but some really nice regrowths and earthbloods did come down to keep his troops fighting as long as they did, and one good cast of the Curse of the Midnight Wind to try to win a key engagement. These peasants got 11 kills, which I think should be applauded. Because peasants don't normally get that kind of quality of work done, though the damage value is pretty pitiful across the board. Men-at-Arms, again, likewise, just kind of there to die, and they did that, so I guess they're fulfilling their role there to their Bretonnian overlords. 567 damage on this unit's not too bad. I think they got tussled up with the Vermeer for a considerable amount of time. And the Peasant Archers, a mixed bag. I mean, 200 damage value, 520, but also 826. If they were allowed to fire longer, I think I really could have been in big, big trouble. Grell Guardians did a fantastic job. 1,866 damage value. Always a joy to see these boys in action. 11k damage dealt as well. Certainly isn't too shabby with the 76 kills coming in there. Pegasus Knights, though, despite some good cycle charging, including the Royal Pegasus Knights, they were breaking up Marauders, trying to cycle charge my Vermeer, trying to cycle charge Wulfric. They just seem to lack punch. I don't know what it is. 336 damage value, 310, and 578. I don't know. I just feel like they're not particularly great. I never really see them paying for themselves that much. I mean, maybe you could argue they're good for getting into the back line, but it's a very expensive backline harass tool compared to something like Mounted Yeoman, for example. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts, actually. What do you think on Pegasus Knights? I just generally think they're quite poor. I don't know if they ever fixed their attack animation, because their attack animation was always pretty rubbish as well. Maybe they're really good in the air game, but perhaps that's the only time you really want to bring them, not up against Norsca, where realistically I'm not going to be having too much flying around in the skies. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.